Hi guys, it is I, and I'm going to promise not to get through this without cracking up at some point or other. My son has been very demented this evening, and he's, if you can see the bubbles or not, I don't know, but he is blowing bubbles, and my grandson is all over the place tonight. But we're going to talk about the open boat. The open boat is the first example of Crane's ability to transfer actual experience into the universal significance without losing any accuracy in representation. In other words, what happens is he's able to take what has transpired and make it perfect, not lose anything in the process. In order to dramatize the spiritual awakening of his main characters, the correspondent Crane imposes a fictional design on the literal events of the shipwreck. The design is simultaneously a physical as well as a mental journey, during which the correspondent changes from the observer into the participant and into the interpreter of this story. Now, as a writer of realistic fiction, Crane is concerned with the effects of events on his characters and the psychological consequences of these events. Crane does not fully develop his characters. He's more concerned with the events. And I'm going to introduce you all to my wonderful grandson, Josiah, who's going to help me teach. Say hi, Josiah. This is April Fool's Day, and everybody, my son is just a goofball right now. But anyway, we're going to talk about now, he's waving hello. This is Josiah. He's 2, and he loves his mama. So the first thing we're going to talk about is nature's indifference to man. Crane makes clear that nature is ultimately indifferent to the plight of man, possessing no consciousness that we can understand. As the stranded men progress through the story, the reality of nature's lack of concern for them becomes very increasingly clear. And Josiah has had enough, as I'm sure maybe you have as well. The narrator highlights his development by the way that the sea is described. First, the sea is described as the sea snarls, thank you, it hisses and bucks like a bronco. And later in the story, we see that the waves pace to and fro, no longer an actor in the man's drama in reality. The sea really does not change at all. However, the perspective of the men is what changes. Plowed to the shore and saved by a freak wave, the correspondent must embrace the fact that the very thing that put him into harm's way is the very thing that also saved his life. This idea gives us actual new ideas. And one is that nature, I'm sorry, went too far there. One is that nature is much more of a punisher than a benefactor. Nature actually does us more damage than any good. And the second thing that it does is it acts out as a lack of motivation, so that man cannot understand the terms of what human it means to be human. So we have the two things. We have that the sea is not our friend, nature is not our friend. It is more of a punisher, and that also the motivation can understand in human terms. The next theme we see in here is man's insignificance in the universe. It conveys a feeling of loneliness that comes from man's understanding that he is alone in this universe and insignificant in all its workings, that man really does not have an important part. And we also see that the correspondent realizes this in section 6 of the book, when he says that fate will not answer his pleas. He settles into despair. The correspondent fears that he will perish without a connection to whatever gives him his sense of self. And again, I don't want to make this a Bible class, because it's not, it's a literature class. But I don't want to also leave us hanging in this despair that Crane gives us. As Crane, as a realist writer, he had no hope. He saw no purpose. There was, nothing that was of any value. Whereas we, as believers in Christ, we have a purpose. We have value. And in closing, we're going to continue up the themes and finish up the rest. We're going to actually get into the open book. I want you to start reading that, and we'll talk more about it. Have a great night, and I hope you enjoyed meeting my grandson, and I'll talk to you soon.